The last 3 years have been uncertain times in every way, but no more than in finance, and especially in agri-finance. David Magana is with Rabo AgriFinance. You know the name, you might have worked with him before. David, it's been a very cloudy 2 or 3 years and a lot of ups and downs, and crystal balls got very, very dark for a while. We couldn't see into them. We're looking ahead. We're starting to get some of this behind us. We've seen runaway inflation. We've seen rising prices in every sector. We've seen logistics nightmares that have created havoc, especially for the agriculture industry. It's the job of people like you and your team to try to polish up that crystal ball, take a look into the future, see where things are going. How is 2023 shaping up, projecting? What are some of the things that we can expect? What should people have in mind as we're moving forward in 2023?
Yeah. Well, before we need to just a short recap. We've been facing this massive collision of demand side forces and supply side forces. Like now, we've seen some consequences of that, like logistic bottlenecks, high inflation, and now, given what the government is doing with monetary policy and what the industry has been doing in terms of innovation and bringing solutions to solve the problems, in 2023, we will see a better picture in terms of logistics. So logistics have been improving compared to what it was just 12 months ago. So we will see better logistics in part because the demand is being impacted by high inflation. So consumers have been feeling the pain, and now the demand is not as strong as it was just 12 months ago. So logistics will improve, like all the container rates are down compared to what it was just in 2022.
When ships were sitting offshore in ports waiting days, weeks, months to be unloaded because there were not people on the other side to unload them. There were not trucks waiting to take that material and transport it somewhere. As some of that has returned to normal, that picture is improving. That in turn impacts everything else.
That is correct. And on the supply side, another good news is fertilizer prices that were at the very elevated levels in 2022. We're expecting prices to be more affordable in 2023, and so that's another good news. Just as an example of this, how on the input side and on the energy side, we've seen also natural gas prices in some places coming back down to pre-war levels. In part because the winter in Europe is being relatively warm, so the demand for natural gas is not being as high, and they have enough reserves, so prices are now better. So that should help also on the input side as we're referring to. So.
And in an economic term, I think what we forget sometimes as a nation is that it's a global economy, and we live in a global world. If you squeeze a balloon in the middle, it's gonna pop out somewhere else. You can't cover things up, you can't hide things, they all show up. We know there are global problems still. How are those likely to impact us here in the United States?
Okay, so there are a lot of unpredictable events.
That's a lot to unpack, David, I understand that.
As we've seen, right? A lot of black swan events or like we've seen over the past few years, a lot of those. So regarding the economy, there are still the dark clouds of potential recessions are still upon us. So
but it's my understanding those fears have eased up somewhat.
So now many economists are expecting a mild recession in some of the big economies, and hopefully that is the case, if ever, right? Because there is the technical definition of a recession, and also there is just like so we don't know like if we're gonna have a recession as classified as such.
There's a difference between a pinch and a punch. I mean, it makes a big difference. So much better though than we were looking and projecting 6, 9, 12 months ago. There was a lot of worry and a lot of gloom and doom forecasting. It's very important that Americans understand that pressure has eased somewhat.
That is correct. And also in terms, for example, of interest rates, probably we'll see a little bit higher interest rates this year before they start with the other part of the cycle where interest rates are gonna be starting to decline, likely by the end of 2024.
So when all is said and done, when it's all wrapped up, 2023, better year for farmers than 22, 21, 20, worse year. Do we know? What's your best projection, David? What does the smart people say?
As I said, there are some signs of relief in terms of on the supply side. Cost should be somewhat lower compared to 22, particularly on the fertilizer side, hopefully on the energy side as well. Labor markets should continue to improve. But on the demand side, we will see still some consumers trading down as they are facing still elevated inflation. So in terms of prices, we will see that balance between that supply and demand, right?
The good news in this business, everybody's gotta eat. There's reason for hope, there's reason for optimism. It looks like clouds might be going away a little bit. We'll see bluer skies ahead in 2023. In Savannah, I'm Chip Carter from Where the Food Comes From, reporting for RFD-TV.